Today we're going to be talking about the thing that some people just can't seem to get enough of, minors. We're going to be talking about minors in media, minors in cosplay, minors in cons, and interacting with minors as an adult. But before we get into it, hi, my name is Ezra Faye. I'm a cosplayer, a professional makeup artist, and I have been cosplaying for a very long time and started off as a minor. In fact, a lot of us did, and we forget that point of view. So if you're a little confused, if you're like, huh? What are you talking about? Just bear with me for a second. I'm going to be talking about anime specifically, and in a lot of anime and manga and that type of media, there seems to be an overwhelming sexualization of minors. If you think of shows like Dan Dan Dan, Kakaguri, and so many more, it seems like minors are being put in these suggestive and promiscuous outfits and situations, and a lot of times it becomes a key element of the story. It is something that unfortunately seems to be big in Japanese culture and American culture as well. However, the very simplest thing I can say is, despite the fact that this seems to be more and more prevalent with the anime and manga coming out, it doesn't mean that we should encourage it. And just because this is the kind of content that the authors are producing does not mean that we should be celebrating it or thinking like, oh, since they did it, it's okay to do it too. I think stories like Kakaguri and Dan 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 are good stories, but they do have their moments in them that seem to occur over and over and over again, where I'm sitting there watching them. Is this really necessary, or did we have to do this with high school age characters? Point blank period. Just because the authors are making certain media does not mean it is okay to encourage it or cosplay it. Dan 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 has some very dark themes, and I have seen too many people cosplaying Momo in their underwear, and I'm begging you to stop. I understand that she's put in those positions in the anime. That doesn't mean it's okay. And I'm reading comment sections, and it's like all these people are hyping it up and being like, oh, well, I gotta watch it now. What the fuck is wrong with you? And I've been dumb enough, I guess, to comment, hey, that's a minor, and people replying to my comment saying, we don't care. It's disgusting. Shame on the people encouraging that, and shame on the creators who are well aware of what they're doing. So we gotta start off by talking about some rules when it comes to cosplaying minors. For starters, it should be a given that you should never cosplay a minor wearing something promiscuous like lingerie, bunny suit. Why are we doing that? You could have chosen any character. Why did you have to choose My Hero Academia characters for that? You know they're in high school, and if you've done any research on the origins of bunny suits, or even just looking at a bunny suit, you would know it's completely inappropriate. Nobody is cosplaying in a bunny suit thinking like, oh, it's just a cute little outfit. Most, if not all, people cosplaying a bunny suit are doing it for that sexy factor, to be a little bit promiscuous. And yeah, like, celebrate confidence in your body, but do not do it while dressed as a character who is supposed to be a minor. It's weird. I know some people do think it through and do it anyways, and that's awful. And I think we need to start creating a culture where when we see something, we say something. And I'm talking like, if I saw someone cosplaying Momo in their underwear at a con, I'm not just gonna whisper to my boyfriend, oh my god, look, like, I should go up to her and be like, hey, that's fucked up. It's not body shaming. It's not harassment. You are cosplaying a minor being in a compromising position, and you know it. If you didn't know how old a character was, I feel like that's not an excuse in today's culture. I hate the, oh, I didn't know, for anything. And it is nobody else's job to educate you. I hate a, oh, I didn't know. Oh, get out. There's the matter of cosplaying minors when they have an adult form, but you still do their minor form in something promiscuous. So let's take the Naruto characters, for example. I like to cosplay Sakura. So let's say I decide to do a bunny suit for her. Should I choose her Shippuden design, where she's just a teenager, or should I do her Boruto design, where she's an adult? The answer should be obvious, right? But a lot of times people choose to do the teenage form instead. And it's just my opinion that if you want to do something like that and you choose the child form versus the adult design, there's something wrong with you. Pick a different character. It's as simple as that. With anime, a lot of our favorite characters are minors. When you think of shows like Naruto, Jujutsu Kaisen, Bleach, or My Hero, so many others, a lot of those main characters are minors, and there's nothing that's inherently wrong with seeing that character and being like, I want to cosplay them. There's plenty of characters that I've cosplayed that are high school students and maybe a little bit younger. But the way that you do it is so important, and I do think there should be age limit. So while I think cosplaying someone like Momo or Deku or Ichigo is fine in of itself, I raise a brow to grown adults who choose to cosplay characters like Anya or a platelet cell, because I feel like it's just a little too young, a little too weird. Out of all of the characters you could have chosen, let's just take Spy Family. There is a very diverse cast of characters and female characters that you can cosplay from Spy Family, and out of all of them, you chose the 6-year-old. I understand the appeal of doing cosplay groups, but at the same time, it's a little strange that out of all of your choices, you chose such a young child. And then there's shows like, going back to Kakegurui, it's a cool show, but it's undeniably sexualized in the show and in the fandom. Wanting to cosplay characters in their school uniforms is fine, but taking suggestive photos or doing things like bunny suits or lingerie, or even doing promiscuous things in the school uniforms is wrong. If I want to do a Kakegurui group, us posing with some playing cards or at a poker table is fine, I guess. But if I'm doing a sexy pose on a poker table, that's weird, because we all know we're cosplaying high school students and we've decided to make it a sexual thing. Or even if it's not overtly sexual, but it could be interpreted as sexual, stay away from it. And I don't believe in aging up a character, especially a character that doesn't already have an adult design. And I think at that point, like, even kissing or making an innuendo is weird, even if it is under the guise of, oh, this character is aged up, because you can take two minors and throw them into something skimpy and put them in a compromising position, but then you're like, oh, well, they're aged up. Somewhere in the caption, the first thing people are seeing is not that caption that's saying, oh, I know they're 15, but in my headcanon they're 20 in this picture. That's not the first thing people are seeing. The first thing people are seeing is two minor characters in sexy outfits doing sexy poses. Nobody's gonna go looking at that and being like, oh, let me make sure that she says it's aged up. No, they're immediately going to the comments being like, oh, drop your OnlyFans. Like, nothing against OnlyFans or anything of that nature. It's against doing it dressed as a minor. I can't make it any clearer than that. Just because you say it's aged up doesn't mean someone's going to look at it and be like, oh, well, she says they're 20 in this picture, so I'm gonna view it as that. There's creepy people on the internet. It happens, and it's a huge issue. And I just feel like the whole aging up aspect of it is like a cop-out excuse, because at that point, you know you shouldn't be doing it with that character, and the only thing that's saving you is this thin little string that you're holding on to of the concept of being aged up. I think the reasoning can be pretty flawed, and I think that we just shouldn't be doing it. Why are we doing all these other outlets just to put characters who are minors in adult situations? So let's decide that you decide to cosplay a character who is a minor, and you are going to do so appropriately. We got to talk about how to act. The golden rule is to not do anything that could be misinterpreted. You got to think about it, especially when you're at places like cons. There are cameras everywhere, and someone is always watching you. And if the wrong person sees you doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, your whole career could be ended. So it's very important to act in a way that is not going to get you in trouble somehow. Do not do anything that could be misunderstood or seen at the wrong time. At Katsucon, my boyfriend is going to do Okarun. We're gonna hold hands and we're gonna act how we usually act around each other, but I'm not going to start making out with him or doing promiscuous photos with him, because we both understand that we're cosplaying 15-year-olds, and that's weird. Even though we're both adults and we both love each other, we know that there's a time and place, and in a public setting dressed as two high school characters is not that time nor that place. You need to care that people are watching, and we've talked about this in past videos. People are always looking for an excuse to cancel cancel someone else. So you do not want to be the person that's getting the allegations thrown at them next. We have to stop creating a culture in cons where bad things happen to minors and it's normal. From minors being given alcohol to minors being put in positions where they don't have that willpower to say no, it has to stop. I recently participated in one of those Instagram story trends where it was tell some of your craziest con memories. And I put a few down, and one of them was like, oh, I remember being 15 and an adult inviting me to their hotel room that I had just met. But what really disheartened me was the amount of people that replied to my story saying, oh, that happened to me too, or I think that's just like a canon event for young girls. There's nothing else I can say to that. There is no reason why that should be considered a canon event. But overall, we have to stop treating minors like they're idiots, because they're not, especially in today's day and age where minors want to act so grown up. We have to stop acting like they're these innocent little angels that don't know anything about the real world, because it's definitely not the case. I think overall we should have more grace towards minors when they act a fool and make mistakes, because they're young and malleable and they still have the chance to learn, and they're easily manipulated. They might not have strong self-confidence or the ability to say no even if they want to. But a lot of minors are very aware of what they're doing. Because of things like TikTok, Instagram, and unrestricted internet access, minors today know a lot more than we give them credit for. This is where we have to go back and remember when we were minors. And I think this applies to minors across the ages. We all wanted to be treated like adults when we became teenagers. No teenager wants to be like, oh, little Ezra, you don't know anything. No, I want to be treated like an adult, because in my mind as a teenager, I was like, I know more, I know better. Even if I didn't, I thought I did. And then we're so concerned with shielding minors and being like, oh, I can't believe minors watch Hasman Hotel when it's so sexual. They shouldn't be, but like, how many of us as adults now were reading 18 plus fanfic, looking at 18 plus fan art when we were teenagers? I know I read so much adult fanfic as a teenager, and I know I'm not the only one. Was it okay that I did it? No. Was it okay that it was so easily available to me? No. But we have to stop acting so surprised that minors are doing the same things that we did when we were teenagers, and probably that the people older than us were doing when they were teenagers. But since we're so aware of how prevalent it is, I think we need to be taking higher measures to keep it out of the wrong hands, so that a new age of minors is not getting hooked on Hasbin Hotel, even though it's cartoony and it looks fun and it looks edgy, and that can be really appealing to a teenager. But at the end of the day, that show is garbage, but it's garbage for young brains. They don't need that. Even shows like Dun 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 and Chainsaw Man and even Demon Slayer, which are rated mature, have a huge fan base of children, and I think that's a little concerning given the content that is in these shows. Minors understand what they're consuming isn't for them, and we understood that what we were consuming isn't for us either. Why do you think we tried so hard to hide it from our parents? And at the end of the day, it is on the parents to monitor their kids. The only thing we can really do is disengage with it, and if the worst case scenario happens and they're doing something that is directly impacting you, if you, for example, I'm just going to use Hasbin Hotel, if you're cosplaying Hasbin Hotel and a minor dressed as Angel Dust comes up to you and starts being wildly inappropriate, at that point you are in the position to be like, hey, this is really inappropriate, you need to stop. It's directly impacting you or your environment. The same way, if you see that behavior happening around you, I do believe that it is the adult's responsibility to say, hey, you need to stop that. Report them if you need to, block them if you need to. Don't put yourself in a position where your role in that situation can be seen as inappropriate. There's a difference between that hypothetical Angel Dust situation and you just seeing a kid dressed up as Angel Dust walking by and pulling them aside and being like, what you're doing is completely inappropriate, because at that point you're not the parent, and the best thing I could say is just don't engage. I think that's a problem with the parents. I feel like a lot of the time parents are unaware. They don't know that a show like Hasbin Hotel has so much sexual stuff in it. They just see a cartoon and they think that's for kids. We're gonna transition into talking about relationships with minors. I think that the don't talk to minors at all for any only reason mentality is just the slightest bit extreme. I think that if you prefer to take that stance, if you would rather not follow minors, have minors follow you, talk to them and interact with them in any capacity, I think that's perfectly fine and there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't think that it needs to be the default. I think that people can still interact with minors, but they have to do so respectfully and carefully. I do believe that there is a way to have a safe relationship with a minor, and I do think the word relationship is a little too friendly. I think it's more of an acquaintanceship, because I don't think as an adult you should be actively trying to make friends with minors. But if the occasional minor crosses your path, I think it's perfectly okay to talk to them, be friendly, and interact with them, but how you do it is important. When I was a minor in the cosplay world, I do remember the adults around me having more boundaries and more self-control than they do now, unfortunately. I also grew up in a very close-knit, sheltered community, and I wasn't taught about the dangers of relationships with adults because it wasn't a problem in the world that I grew up in, and I didn't start to see that until years later. So that problem didn't even cross my mind as I started going to conventions and trying to make friends with both people my age and people much older than me. Now, if I were an adult in that situation and I see that a minor is actively trying to be friends with me, that's my cue to be like, oh, hold on, slow down. But as a minor, I didn't know. And I know I just said earlier, the whole I didn't know mentality is no excuse. And I mean that more for adults than for minors, because minors are still learning, like I said. But I think it's okay to talk to minors in the sense that we can help them grow in their cosplay journey. We can educate them so that they don't make the same mistakes that we did as minors, and we can create a positive environment for the next generation of cosplayers, because like it or not, younger people are coming to cons and it's going to continue to happen. These kind of relationship dynamics are very fine and finicky. It can look like things like answering a cosplay or convention related question, or respectfully calling out harmful behavior when we see it, or being a safe figure or friendly face should a minor that you are acquainted with feel like they are unsafe. And it can also just be being a positive role model. But what it doesn't look like is talking with minors every day, especially if you aren't actively helping them make a cosplay or just saying hello at a con. It doesn't look like parenting them or being responsible for them, and it doesn't look like letting them into your inner circle, inviting them to your personal events, and it also doesn't look like making yourself available for them to talk about their mental health or their bodies. I know that it can be hard to differentiate when I say be a safe space. I mean that more so in the fact that if I'm acquainted with a minor, I want them to feel safe enough to come up to me should another adult make them feel unsafe and they don't have a parent with them. I would much rather a minor come up to me and be like, that person is being inappropriate, I need help. That's perfectly appropriate, but I'm not going to be here for a minor that's like, my mental health is really bad, or I have a question about my changing body. That's not for me. I'm not your therapist, I'm not your doctor, I'm not your parent, and you need to go to one of them for this. I wouldn't have been motivated to continue cosplaying and going to cons if it weren't for those older cosplayers that I looked up to. And it did mean a lot to have those older cosplayers that I look up to acknowledge me, even if it was just saying hello or taking a quick selfie with me. It may not seem like much to you, but to someone younger, it can mean a lot, and I know that it did to me. A lot of minors just want to be acknowledged, and I feel like once you acknowledge that they're there, they'll leave you the fuck alone for the most part. The difference between me and the adult cosplayers that I looked up to as a minor, I wasn't hanging out with them every day or texting them every day outside of cons. The adults were a lot better about keeping up appropriate walls, but if for some reason I was overstepping and messaging too much or trying to meet up with them, they would either not respond or just be like, hey, no. I think being in a group environment with a minor can be okay, but not all of them. For example, most con-hosted events like photo shoots, panels, perfectly okay. They're meant to have a mixed age range. A cosplay event outside of a con, like a group photo shoot, is perfectly okay too, and even better if there's parents present. I wouldn't feel good being at a cosplay photo shoot, for example, with minors present if none of their parents were there. And I also think that if there is a group happening, it should be disclosed if there's going to be minors there, because I might not want to show up if there's going to be minors there and no parents. parents. Better to do that than to have anything be misinterpreted or anything like that. We have to just acknowledge that minors are a part of the cosplay and convention space. The important thing is that you know how to act around them and you know how to be appropriate. And then the thing that just baffles me overall with the way that some adults act around minors, or when they're only hanging out around minors, why can't we just hang around people our own age? Actually, I understand as a minor you might look up to older people and you desperately want to be a part of that. I know it because I used to be that minor. But as an adult, you don't have those boundaries and you're having all of these minors in your friend group, and I've seen examples of it, and it's so weird and creepy having a close relationship with a minor. Why can't we just hang around people our own age? Because to me, I would much rather be friends with people who have had similar life experiences or are in the same phase of their life due to things like our age, so that we can relate to each other. I want to be around people who have the same level of maturity as me, and I don't want to have to worry about being super filtered so I don't get canceled for grooming allegations. I want to be around people who have more in common with me other than just my shared interest in cosplay or anime. And I think that some people are like, oh, well, people my age just aren't like me, or I just don't get along with them. To that, I say, if you really think that nobody your age or older as an adult can relate to you, that's a you problem. If I had to wrap it all up with a bow, here's what I would say. Don't do anything that you wouldn't want someone to misinterpret. Don't do anything that could get recorded or posted that could make you look like you're a bad person. Minors are watching, so whether or not you want to be a role model for someone, you might be. Show them the kind of environment and behavior that we want to encourage and cultivate in our cosplay and convention community. Uphold boundaries. If you feel like you can't handle being acquaintances with a minor, don't do it. Take the do not interact at all approach if you must. I think bottom line, a relationship with a minor should never go past that acquaintance level. Some closing words for any minors who are watching this video. I understand that getting into cosplays and getting into cons is super exciting. I understand that some of the most relevant media out there is stuff that has adult themes, and that can be really appealing because you want to be a part of it. I understand that you want to be a part of it, but what I would encourage you to do is to stay in your lane. Don't worry so much about being an adult right now. I miss the magic of experiencing cons and cosplaying for the first few times, and being bad at cosplaying, you're just not at that experience level yet. It will come. I know that you guys know a lot more than a lot of adults give you credit for. Take that knowledge, use it to educate yourself, and use it to make the cosplay and con community a better place, because you guys are the next generation of this community, and it wouldn't be here without you guys just as much as it wouldn't be here without us. Enjoy cosplaying, enjoy going to con. Everything that you see the adults doing that you want to do, you will get your opportunity to do as well. For everybody watching this video, thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Make sure that you like and subscribe so that you can become one of Ezra's faves. I do tons of cosplay content, commentary, makeup, and so much more. I love video ideas. I love questions. Please leave them all in the comments below. I would love to have a discussion with you. If anybody is trying to defend creepy behavior in my comment section, I will. Yeah.